The night began with a quiet wind slipping through the empty streets, carrying the kind of silence that feels heavy on the skin. And inside that silence, she sat alone in her small room, listening to an old radio that had followed her through every chapter of her life. The radio was scratched and fading, yet it was the only thing that never left her. And whenever the world felt too loud, she would turn its dial and let the music lift her toward a place where pain softened and memories felt distant. For years, she had believed that music heals, but that night, something felt different. The song that played was one she had heard only once before, long ago, on a night much like this, when her heart had shattered without warning. She never forgot how the melody wrapped itself around her breath, as if it could feel the weight she carried, as if it understood the ache she could not speak. The first note rose slowly, like a fragile voice trying to survive in a storm, and she felt her throat tighten, as if every heartbeat was trying to remember something it had once tried to forget. She closed her eyes and let the sound move through her. The soft, trembling rise of the notes, the slow fall, the echo that lingered in her chest like a whisper trapped between grief and longing. She did not know why the song returned now, after all this time. It felt as if the past had reached through the dark just to touch her shoulder and remind her that some things never fade, no matter how many years pass, no matter how many times she pretends she has healed. Her hand shook as she reached toward the radio, the wooden frame warm under her fingertips, as if it held a pulse of its own. She wanted to turn the song off. She wanted to run. She wanted to let it play forever. But her body stayed frozen, caught between fear and familiarity. She remembered the night she first heard it, the night she lost the only person who ever saw her without needing her to hide. She remembered the promise she could not keep, the goodbye she never got to give, and the way the world collapsed in a single moment, leaving her alone with guilt that clung to her like a second skin. The melody grew heavier, and she felt her breath grow thin. She tried to steady herself, whispering words she no longer believed. But the song felt alive, as if it had its own sorrow, its own desire to be heard. She leaned closer, her heartbeat syncing with the rhythm, and for a moment she felt him beside her again. Not as a ghost, not as a memory, but as something real, something warm, something that still knew her name. She felt the pull of that old love, the kind that once carried her through nights colder than this, and she felt her chest crack open under the weight of everything she had buried. Her eyes filled with tears and the room blurred, but she refused to let herself fall apart, not again. Not after she had spent years building walls around every vulnerable place inside her. But the song kept rising, weaving itself into the spaces she tried to protect. She tried to silence it, but every note felt like a hand reaching into her past, touching pieces she thought she had erased. She felt the child she used to be, the girl who believed in forever, the woman who learned too early that forever was a fragile thing that could disappear without leaving a trace. She whispered, "Enough," but the song did not stop. She whispered, "Please," but the melody kept flowing through the room, threading itself through her breath. She wanted to break the radio, to end the ache leaking into her bones, yet she knew this song was not coming from the machine alone. It was coming from the memory of a voice she once loved more than anything, a voice that used to hum the same melody under his breath during quiet evenings when they believed they had all the time in the world. She remembered how his fingers tapped along the beat against her hand, how his smile warmed the air, and how he promised to never leave even though fate had other plans. Her grief rose like a tide, and she could no longer stay still. She reached forward and pulled the plug free. The cord dropped to the wooden floor with a soft thud. The room fell dark, the electricity cut, the radio silent, but the song kept playing. Her heart froze, her breath caught in her throat, and she stumbled backward, unable to understand what she was hearing. But there it was, the same melody drifting through the quiet, the same trembling notes filling the air as if the world itself was singing for her. Her mind raced, but she did not feel fear, only a strange familiar pull, like the world was trying to tell her something she had ignored for too long. The song felt softer now, gentler, as if it had shed the weight of the past and become something new. She listened, her hand against her chest, feeling the steady, trembling beat that had survived every heartbreak she had ever carried. She understood then that the song was not coming from the radio alone. It was coming from inside her, from the grief she never spoke, from the love she never released, from the hope she never allowed herself to hold again. The melody swelled, and she felt warmth spread across her ribs, a warmth that did not feel like sadness or loss, but like forgiveness, like someone holding her from the inside, whispering that she was allowed to heal, allowed to remember without breaking, allowed to love without fear. She felt the old pain loosen its grip, and for the first time, she did not fight it. She let the memories come, each one a fragile echo of everything she once had, everything she lost, everything that shaped the woman she had become. The room felt lighter than before, as if the shadows had stepped back, giving her space to breathe. The song continued gently, not haunting now, but guiding her towards something she had been too afraid to face. She wrapped her arms around herself and felt her pulse match the rhythm of the fading melody, and in that moment, she understood that this song was never about sorrow alone. It was the last part of him, the part he left behind to remind her that love, even when it is gone, does not disappear. It transforms, it softens, it teaches, and sometimes it returns through the quiet to lead you home. The music slowly dissolved into the air, each note drifting away like a falling feather, and she stood still, letting the silence settle into her skin. It no longer felt heavy. It no longer hurt. The room felt new, as if the night itself had exhaled. She looked at the unplugged radio, then at her trembling hands, and then at the empty space where the song had lived a moment ago, and she felt something she had not felt in years. A quiet calm, a gentle strength, a strange, peaceful acceptance. She stepped toward the window, letting the night wind brush against her face, and she closed her eyes, listening to the silence that now held no ache. The song was gone, but its warmth remained, resting in her heartbeat, steady, graceful, alive. She knew she would never hear that melody again, not the way she just did, but she also knew she didn't need to because it had already given her what she had been searching for without knowing: closure, healing, forgiveness, and the courage to let the past rest. The night wrapped around her like a soft blanket, and she whispered a name she had not spoken in years, not out of pain, but out of gratitude. She let the whisper fade into the dark, and she smiled a small, fragile smile that grew warmer with every breath she took. The silence no longer frightened her. The darkness no longer felt empty. She felt full in a way she had not felt since the days before loss carved itself into her life. She knew the future would still carry storms, challenges, heartbreaks, but she also knew she was no longer the woman who hid from her own memories. She was no longer the girl who tried to silence her grief. She was ready to step forward, carrying the melody in her heart, not as a wound, but as a reminder that she had survived. She turned from the window, looked at the quiet room, at the unplugged radio, and felt something sacred in the stillness. The song had done what it came to do. It returned only to guide her back to herself. And now that she was ready, it finally let her go.
If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Every single subscription motivates me to bring you even more exciting and dramatic HOA stories. And don't forget to tap the bell icon so you never miss a new upload. I'll see you in the next story, where justice gets even more satisfying.